Hmm. अच्छा. So title. अच्छा. Okay. 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 So today I'll start with the final chapter, that is the microreactor for the synthesis of nanoparticles. And I think we already discussed the power of microfluidics, and how we can really apply microengineering in case of biology. However, the recent trend has been also found that people are also using the microfluidics and microreactor technology for the synthesis of nanoparticle. So why I wanted to mention is, I mean, using microfluidics for biology and all is has been there for a while. It is really common, although maybe in nanoscience and nanobio it is relatively new, but it has been there for a while, like for last 10 years there has been considerable advancement in this field. However, the synthesis of nanoparticle in microreactor is relatively new. It is a really very recent advancement, and I found that it is very useful because as we are anyway learning a lot about microfluidics, lot about microreactor technology and making miniaturization, then I thought that why not to take that advantage even for the synthesis. Okay. So to begin with, the introduction of microreactor, that why really we don't need to do the microreactor. I mean, for nanoparticle synthesis, because we know we can synthesize them in a flask, right? It is much more easier. Like, why should we even take that pain to make those reactors and doing whole operation in that micro level? So to begin with, what I want to say is we already know that how we can fabricate the reactor, right? So we have pretty good flexibility with respect to the material. We can change the material, we can design them. Not only the PDMS based reactors are possible, we can also do the metal based, silicon based reactor, that is also possible. But what are the different advantages we will get? So the main problem, I think, what I know is for nanoparticle synthesis are they are very heterogeneous, right? And we don't get reproducible results. So the size varies a lot, and then even if it varies, it is varying day to day. So today you do some synthesis, you get one particular distribution. Tomorrow you perform the same thing, you get another particular distribution. The main problem here is we don't get any control over the process, like how we are mixing, like what length scale the reactions are happening, and also the most important thing is the sensitivity of the system. So what happens, you remember my parametric sensitivity analysis, right? It's very important actually. I always tell everyone that no matter what you do, you have to do the parametric sensitivity. Because if your system is sensitive, then it is not your fault as an experimentalist. You are doing fine, but still you will be getting lots of variation. And that is because your system is extremely sensitive. You change the mixing style little bit from your pipette distance 2 centimeter versus 4 centimeter, your nanoparticle size will be different. Okay, so there comes the microreactors. What you are trying to do, everything should be programmable, so that your mind and your skill is not involved into it, because human being, they will be always doing some error, right? You cannot remember, you cannot be a robot, so let the robot do its job. So the first important thing is, because the synthesis is generally carried out in flasks and all, we do not have much control. So if we perform our reaction in micro and nano scale, it gives a better control over the process, because you don't need to control the whole thing in so many centimeter, or so many like meter length scale, right? Because so many different kind of statistical process can happen there. So you are going to the micro level and you are trying to control the process over there. So obviously you have a better chance to get everything nicely mixed and the next important thing is you can do in situ characterization. Why? Because anyway, finally from that big flask, you are taking only a very small amount of nanoparticles. And then you are looking at the microscope. Now I already told you, the chip you are making, you have to make it glass bottom and all, so that it is compatible with the microscopy. Now if you synthesize your nanoparticles in the microreactor and then it is also visible under the microscope, then you can do in situ characterization. That means you don't have to do all those things again taken into something else and do. You can just look at them in the reactor. Once you are done, and anyway in microreactor you are not losing lot of your raw materials, right? Because you are doing it in a very small amount, because first step is anyway optimization of your reaction parameters and checking, whether you are getting the desired nanoparticles or not. So the most important part is microreactor actually allows the in situ characterization. Okay. And then obviously when we are talking about nanobio, our idea is to use these nanoparticles into some biosystem, right? So it is also possible that if you can really coat your basically bottom of the reactor with the nanoparticle, you can inject some cells onto it, see the effect, and then you can image it again. So you have actually huge potential that you are using the same thing for the synthesis, and then you are washing the things away, then you are embedding that over there, and then you can characterize your nanoparticles there, and then you can also do some real time tracking of the nanoparticles in the organism. So everything, it can happen, because you can imagine, right? So much work, each and everything is becoming one field. But see, that is why we are not able to accelerate the field, right? We need to accelerate, and for acceleration all we can try is to combine the technologies, combine different smart technologies into the same chip, so that the thing becomes kind of, it is like a pipeline, right? You must be knowing, right? You work in a pipeline. So same thing, you use for your synthesis, then you use the same thing for the real-time monitoring, then you use a similar kind of construction for your organism checking and imaging and all. So you put the thing is pipeline, then your things will be much more, advanced, and it will be less time consuming. And there are definitely, some other advantages which I think, you definitely appreciate by now. And today actually I'll try to show you a series of movies through which you appreciate that this field is actually, advancing very fast. And the most important thing is, again, combining different technologies, integrating different technologies. But nowadays the design of the reactor has been one of the issue which is really all solved, because you can fabricate them with soft lithography or 3D printing, or there are so many other, methods. Probably, Professor Uskokovic, he will go through some of the techniques I have seen anyway. So you'll be having a pretty good idea in details on those. So with that, there is a lot of flexibility in design of the reactor. See, otherwise what is happening is, in flask, when you are producing the nanoparticles, you have only one kind of design available. Now, depending on your chemistry and the nanoparticles and size, you can really design your reactor, and all you need to do is to do a AutoCAD modeling, and then you can fabricate it. So you have lots of flexibility over there, and definitely it is a very inexpensive process because it is a micro, so cost of the material will be very less. So it is not at all a very expensive process we are talking about. And obviously the most important thing, that is our objective, is the reproducibility. You want the same thing to be produced again and again. Okay. Now coming to the micro reactor, I will again give you more or less, what I found as the some good designs of micro reactors so far, and for that you can definitely follow Professor Jensen's paper. He's also a professor at MIT, and I think he was the one, he's kind of the father of the micro reactor, who started all this work. I think maybe at late 90s. So in 2000, by 2002 or 4, you will see there has been a lot of work on micro reactor. However, those microreactors were mostly, developed for catalytic reaction. Because you must be knowing, right? That time, the catalysis was the most important thing. But if you look at all our processes, many of our processes actually, it needs lot of catalytic things. Especially, the nanoparticle used in bio, it's mostly the particles are used as a catalysis. So actually, we can borrow lot of, concepts from there to use their catalytic reactor design. So this is again, a very common design I already showed you, that Y-shaped. Why? Because it is giving us some mixing time. And also, it is actually going to give us a very homogeneous kind of mixing and all those things, I can even show you with a video here how the mixing can be done with this kind of design. So if you look at this,
one of application of paper microfluidics is mixing.
so if you see that, you can see, right, that the
Here
yellow
we
is
are
at the
mixing
right
blue
and this
and
is at
yellow
the
food coloring
left.
using
And
slow
because of the
capillary action.
design, in the middle, you see the different color, right, where things are mixing. So if you see that, although
20
it is
minutes
like
later,
not really, a very difficult thing to design, but you can get a
chemical
very nice
sensors,
mixing here. And not only that, through this kind of
turmeric
technology, what
solution
you can
on
try
filter
is
paper for base.
you can make it reproducible, because if your design is like that, and when you are delivering the fluid with a delivery system, here they are pushing with hand, so obviously that will give some heterogeneity. But if you are doing the delivery with a particular flow rate, you can pretty much reproduce the mixing pattern. That is the most important thing I wanted to tell you again and again, because our mixing pattern is becoming different, our synthesis is becoming very, non-reproducible. But if you have a design of microreactor, your length and breadth and dimension, everything remains the same. Your fluid flow rate remains the same. Your mixing will be same, because it will follow some equation anyway, right? So according to that equation, it will be exactly identical. So that is something, I found that it is high time that we should really think of this kind of mixing procedure to be incorporated in all kinds of nanoparticle synthesis, and people have already, started working on this. Then coming to some more kinds of design, where you can see that you can also try the multi-stage kind of reactor, parallel stage kind of reactor. So these reactors are actually have been using for separation processes, but these kind of designs can also be incorporated in nanoparticle when you want to, not only you want to do one step, but multi steps or parallel steps you want to do. And also, if you see that microreactor design actually is focusing lot on the micro mixing region, so you can actually do the mixing at different length scale again here. If you see, there is a mixing region in a smaller length scale, and then it is again doing at a larger length scale. Okay, so depending on, you, how you want to make your flow possible, that if you want some mixing in the beginning and then you want some other things to come there and then again getting mixed, then you can do it at the multiple level also. So when you look at this design, you will see that, how people are thinking that you can incorporate the mixing, but you may not do a very big spiral in the beginning, because that is going to take a lot of time, right? Because it will flow and all, it will come back and go, and it will take. So you can do a micro mixing region, and then you allow your reactions to be happening. So you can have a micro mixing region, and then you can have your reaction region. Okay, so all these flexibilities are there. This is also another interesting micro reactor, where I found that they are actually doing the heat exchanging also in the reactor. So if you want to have a temperature control, that is also possible in the micro scale. So if you look at that reactor, it is having that reactant inlet, and then it is having a cooling fluid in, right, over there. And then it is passing through that. And if you see the zoomed view, you will see that the cooling fluid is passing through the tubes over there, and there is some gap in between. So basically, in this micro design, you can also pass, you can, if you design your channel in parallel, you can pass the cooling liquid through also. So if you see that the temperature control can be done also pretty good. And we have huge advancement in fluid mechanics, right? So all those things can actually be applied over here. You see that, if you know enough about the fluid mechanics, then you can actually control all this flow, because it should not be too difficult. People have already done it, and all you need to do is you have to maintain your pressure and flow rate in such a way so that you can have a flow without any bubble formation. Because I know that when you are working with microfluidics, the main problem come with the bubble formation. If you produce some bubble, definitely your flow will be disrupted, and then your temperature control and everything will be difficult. But if you see that we can apply that whole knowledge of fluid mechanics into it, could be a very good application over there. And not only that, you can see that at the end they have kept one region where you can do all your FTIR and all those things. So what you are trying to do is you are trying to reduce the cost. You are doing it at the micro level. You are having your inlet and outlet, and you are not giving them a huge area like a flask, so that they have lots of flexibility to go here and there and make it heterogeneous. And on the top of that, you can temperature control it. And not only that, you can also have a monitoring region where you can see how your products are. That is the in situ monitoring. So I think it is good to at least learn about different microreactors, what can be possible and what is not possible. So again, another example I wanted to give is a dual channel microchemical system. So here, all that they are doing is design is pretty similar, but you can even do a gas phase and liquid phase, and you can make a membrane inside so that you can do the multi-phase reactions to happen too. So that is kind of, membrane reactor where we are having two channels, and you already know you can design layer by layer, right? So you can have a layer, another layer, and then you can again plasma bond. Yeah.
Ma'am, won't we have any problem of choking of these pipes because nanoparticles will be forming maybe at the end of the tubes while it is just discharging?
Yeah, so that for that, I will discuss anyway. So if you see that nanoparticle choking, but the thing is, see, you are producing the nanoparticles, right? That also you need to keep in mind, because all we are talking about is 800 microns, these reactors. And now we will, next chapter will be on milli reactors. So I don't think there will be a huge possibility of choking, because in our mind there are lots of particles coming and coming in there, but it is only in the nano size, right? You are doing in 50 nanometer. So if you can control your fluid flow, 50 nanometer versus 1 millimeter, it is huge space. So all you need is to control. Dimension wise, there shouldn't be any choking, because in our mind we have the lot of nanoparticles, right? And definitely in this we are not going to produce like huge amount. This is not large scale. So microreactor makes sure that we are not talking about the large scale production here. Here we are talking about that if we want a quality production, because see why it is important. Just think, how you use your nanoparticles. You are not using it like a fuel in the car, right? You are using it as a drug. You are using it as a sensor to be put in your body to detect the tumor, to detect your Alzheimer disease. So it is extremely low amount you will be using. But the problem is the quality should be perfect, because you are introducing it in your body. So we don't think about a very large scale thing here. All we want is very high quality, not the quantity. That is, and it is because we know we are talking about nanobio. Definitely, if you talk about some nano coating in cars, maybe you need in large amount, and there it may not be so useful. But because I'm talking about nanobio, all I feel is, see, we can do lots of quantity. What is the use of it, right? We need the quality. Now when you are talking about quality, don't try to make too much. But because it is, the dimension is nano, that milli reactor or maybe some micro reactor at 800 micron should be pretty good if you can control your amount. So I think the choking may not be a issue. However, we'll go through the the reactors that people are actually producing, you can see. So the next topic I wanted to also discuss, that why not millifluidic. That is also another question, people are asking, that why do we need to do micro? Is there any big reason for that, other than that it is a big buzzword? So maybe not, we can easily go to milli, and that may actually solve a lot of our problem. Like she was anyway telling, maybe micro, if there is any choking, you can definitely go to milli. I mean, there is no way people can object that your milli will be very bad for nanoparticle synthesis, because the idea here is the miniaturization, and the idea here is the best control and low cost fabrication. So with that, if you go to 1.2 millimeter or 2 millimeter, it should be perfectly fine, right? You don't need to make it micro. So I always ask this question, that why not millifluidic reactor? And there are a couple of advantages too in millifluidic. Definitely, you'll get the more surface area, and then pressure drop will be much lower than the micro, right? Because more and more you go to micro, you'll be having trouble with the pressure drop. And the same thing that you raised, blockage due to formation of the precipitate can be done. So the idea is anyway the miniaturization. You have to just see, how much you are producing with respect to that, what ratio you want to keep it open so that it has enough space. And also the most important advantage I think is it is much more cheaper and easier to fabricate the milli reactor. More and more you go to micro, see you have to do that precision, right? And basically we pay the cost for precision. Any instrument you buy, right, analytical instrument, if it can measure picogram, it costs more, right? If it can measure milligram, what is the big deal? Anything can measure milligram, right? So we actually pay for the precision. All the time we pay for the precision. Now if you do micro fabrication, obviously your instrument will be very costly. If you do milli, the instrument will be cheaper. If you do even higher, it will be even. So that's why, we can do a lot of optimization in the, dimension. And then as you see that, obviously with respect to fabrication process, you can use 3D printing for this milli reactor. So which is time and cost effectiveness will be there. And obviously you can do lots of different design. So that is what, I am really interested in to tell you that sometimes you will see that always these people are doing that Y-shaped thing. Why? Because, they don't want to change because once you change it will be again costly, right? You have to make that model, you have to print. But if you make your fabrication process very cheap, you have actually lot of flexibility with respect to design. And you see, this is a paper from, I think it is some Oxford school or somewhere. They are working a lot on 3D printing, and they are working on milli reactor designs, lots of reaction wares. I mean, there is a complete revolution coming in the reactor design because of the 3D printing. We had actually one symposium on 3D printing, and again they are saying, I mean, it is all disruptive. Actually you can do everything. You can print a gun. So it's actually scary, with 3D printing you can print a gun, you can print anything. They are printing a car. In Chicago, they have printed a complete car, 3D printing. You can pretty much do the digital, printing of everything. It is called, layer by layer manufacturing. And manufacturing has really reached in a different level now. So definitely we should take the advantage of that in nanobio too, right? Why not? Because if we can print a car, if we can print our house, if we can print a gun, let's not do all these, let's print some reactor and see how we can advance the nanobiotechnology. Okay. So that's why I thought, it's a very important area. And if you see, you can design some of the very intricate kind of design, which is otherwise, it's very difficult. But if you make a AutoCAD model and print it, it is much more easier. If you want to fabricate this kind of reactor, otherwise it may not be so straightforward actually. And that's why actually we keep on using the glass vessels. So even in chemistry, they are saying that now they are actually, they want lot of different types of reaction wares, because you can do lot of different things by changing the reactor design instead of using the glass vessels. And so definitely, you should think about it, and you should see that what kind of, advancement can be done using 3D printing. And then you see that here there is one example they are giving of just, some synthesis. You can do the reaction in this kind of reaction where, and you can measure, the product also, and you can optimize some flow rates and all, so that your yield is more. So this kind of flexibility also you have some control parameters. And then, I will also show that there are other kinds of reaction you can do with, in fact, as I was saying, is this Y channel with some more closer mixing, and then, less parts. So you can have lots of flexibility there, and these all parameters you can use as your optimization parameter too. That changing these, if you can increase the yield, changing the mixing time versus reaction time. And good part is you can all, measure the product level in situ. Okay, so that will give you a direct thing. And then, as I told you, these kind of reactors, it otherwise, fabricating is very difficult. It is kind of coming from one side and then going and then again coming to the other sides. Okay, so that way, you have lot of flexibility in your design and you can improve. And then they have also shown in this paper that this kind of paper not only can be used for general organic synthesis, they also showed the proof of concept for nanoparticle synthesis. So that's why I chose this paper, because people have already tried different kinds of organic synthesis in 3D printed reactors, micro reactors, milli reactors, and in 3D printing, going to micro is little bit difficult. So if you go in 1 to 2 millimeter, you can get pretty good, this thing. But you probably can manage 0.8 kind of millimeter there, like 800 micron. I am saying that probably is it. We are actually in the process of optimizing, like we started from 0.2, 0.6, 0.8, 1, 1.2, all we are trying with 3D printing, and we are seeing what is the minimum we can try. So those possibilities are there, but definitely if you go to 1 to 2 millimeter, I think it will be just straightforward. So if you look at this, they are using a simple spiral reactor. They are giving their A and B as a reactants, and then they are producing the gold nanoparticle. So that thing is already there, and if you see the size distribution is kind of good, right? So you can measure the thing, their like their size distribution. You can do all these other characterization, and it will be very cheap, won't be very difficult. But you have to be very good in your fluid flow, not choking. So make sure your fluid background you have to brush up, and it is for a practical application. Okay, it's not just writing some equation, but really applying the knowledge of pressure and the flow rate and the dimension, and in that kind of dimension what kind of flow pattern, what kind of Reynolds number you want to follow and all. And definitely it will be much easier to create a laminar flow. You can imagine, right? Your D is very, very small over there, right? So then your Reynolds number control may not be so difficult. Okay. So then, with this particular kind of design, they are saying that within a span of a day, the geometry can be decided, which is a huge thing. You really cannot do this kind of thing with any other technology here. You can try any geometry within a span of 1 day, because you will only need an hour to print the reactor, like end to end. After you finish the AutoCAD modeling, it will probably take an hour to print the reactor. So you don't even need to tell someone that, okay, this is my design, do you understand how it look like? Then they will say, okay, I will try. Then they will make the reactor. Then there will be then they will do a mistake. And here, even if you do a mistake, it will be 1 more hour. And it's not so expensive. Actually, I asked the milli reactor that I showed yesterday. I think it takes couple of minutes probably to print that reactor, and it will be of like some 6 rupees to 10 rupees will be cost. So you see, right, even if you do some mistake, you don't feel guilty, you can again print, right? Maybe some power cost will be there, but the material cost is very, very low. The power cost will be there.
How do you compare the photolithography technique over 3D printing? Which one would be better?
It is all about dimension, I told, right? You are paying for the precision. In photolithography, you can do 10 micron, you can do 5 micron. That you will never be able to do in 3D printing. So it all depends on a dimension. I told you that we are paying for the precision over there. And in photolithography, I will show you actually, I have some movie today from our lab only, because I thought these, YouTube movies are pretty big. So I'll show that to you. You will see that, you need a very fancy setup that is 1 crore rupees cost. And then, also there you have all this kind of robotics and all, right? You have seen also yesterday. So those robotics we are paying, no, because it has to be very precise when you are talking about the 10 microns and 5 microns. Maybe you are doing some patterning over there too. So that is soft lithography, photolithography. So you cannot replace those things with 3D printing. But what you can do is look at your objective. Suppose you want to produce some.
Yes.
Okay, sure, come. Yeah. So then if you really want to produce nanoparticles, my question is, until unless there is a big reason you need that 5 micron and 10 micron, why should you use photolithography? Okay. So that is the thing. That is the whole idea of that if you don't need that precision, you can do 3D printing. Okay. That is the idea.
The typical cost of 3D printer.
So there
Yes,
are
one.
there are various types of 3D printers. It depends on like how much flexibility you have with respect to material. So the main cost again you are paying. Suppose you are using your 3D printer for only 2 material, it will be costing 2 lakh. You can get a 3D printer in as simple as 2 lakh. You can get, yeah. But then you don't have flexibility with respect to material.
For polypropylene only.
Yeah, ABS plastic you can get in 1 lakh, I think. You can print ABS plastic
I
in.
saw one this time in Houston, in the Texas
Texas A&M and also not Texas A&M, it is the Baker Hughes lab.
Mm.
It's a huge,
Mm.
and they are making all these petrochemical industry intricate parts.
Yeah, they are making all airplane parts.
They are doing
You'll be amazed. All airplane parts are getting printed. That's it.
and it's amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first time I saw, and they prepared something before us.
I think in the 3D printing symposium, they were showing us how they are printing the car.
Ah,
It's amazing. It's unbelievable. I mean, I was like, what we are doing? People are printing car and driving. Yeah. So you can. It is really, it is a disruptive technology. It's very disturbing, if you see that.
3D printer, those who manufacture the 3D printer itself,
Yeah.
is any Indian company is there? No.
That I don't know. Probably
But
not.
you are saying 1 or 2 lakhs.
1 or 2 lakh, because I know why. Because in IIT Hyderabad we have a undergrad first year we have a course on 3D printing. Very beginning we have the complete 3D printing training. So that's why we have a lab. Okay, lab is having some 25 to 30 printers. So those are all 1 to 1.5 lakh. Because that is just to give some introduction to the. So they make all the robot model and all those like simple. How you can do it. So all those models they will make and also like that. But definitely for research and all, if you want to print PDMS or maybe polylysine and all, then it slowly goes higher. And I know that very like fancy reactor, sorry, very fancy 3D printer where you can print tissue. That is also people are doing. So they are printing tissue, which is called a complete bioprinter. There you can give layer by layer all the materials with the different cell lines, stem cells, and all. That is, I think, again 1 crore. That will be.
Skin is also there.
Yeah, 3D printing of skin is also there.
So it's 1 crore. That is-
Exactly.
My
Yeah.
idea was of the order of crores.
Yeah, so those will be 1 to 2 crore. But in between, you can have 2 lakh, and if you get a little bit better precision, 10 lakh. I think 10 lakh also you will be getting something okay. And then maybe you will be having flexibility to print 2, 3 materials. Because see, the viscosity you have to manipulate, right? Because it is kind of coming in a syringe and digital. It is doing layer by layer. You can again see some video. There will be plenty of video in YouTube. But in that symposium, we had like from those people, like Australia people came who are really working on those digital printers and all. They showed that the main challenge lies now is basically the material. Like flexibility with respect to different material printing. Like if I give any material, will you be able to print? No, that is not there. So you'll be having the small database of material that can be printed. But that is also pretty, it is tremendous actually. So this is how there is, you can see, right? I mean, you have just so much flexibility with respect to the material and the design, and you can always try the inert and inexpensive material so that it will be easy. And also, as I mentioned, that something looking like this, making this otherwise will be pretty difficult. So complicated designs are very straightforward with it, because all you need to make is the geometric model. Okay. And there are a couple of things, as already mentioned, by sir, we can actually improve something on the milli reactors and these 3D printed reactors. That is if we can incorporate that transparent observation window because of that in situ thing. Because many of the time the problem with printing is you just print with one material, right? So that glass bottom giving is little tricky sometimes, but people are working on it, so don't worry. All you need to again understand is some kind of good adhesive technology, so that in your 3D printed reactor you keep a small window and you can chip your glass in there, so that that place will be having like a transparent observation window. That's what they are talking about, right? But that I already told that in soft litho it is very much possible. You have the PDMS, you can bond, plasma bond you can do, but with 3D printed we are still not there. But that technology can be done. All you need to do is, again, if you can do a 3D printed thing, and then you can bond the glass with that. So that particular step is, I mean, people are working on it, but I haven't at least found any paper. Maybe it is there. And definitely, all other things, we need to work on that, the solvent compatibility, the conductivity, the temperature. But mostly, if you see, these all are coming from the material side. The printing part is all done, so you have to only choose the material parts and all. So here I found one particular microfluidic device for synthesis of nanoparticles, and you can see, right, how the size of nanoparticles they can precisely control. and you look at their reactor design. I mean, I don't know all the secrets of their design. They must be knowing, and sometimes in the paper they don't give you all the secrets. But there is, only one way to learn about this is to do it by yourself. Okay, there is no other method. Many of the things in experiments, especially in the area of nanotechnology and biotechnology, the only way you learn is through your experience. So please do not hesitate to try something new. If you start something new, there is no way you will not learn it. Okay, so absolutely, one procedure to learn is to try that. And there are a lot of low cost technologies nowadays available. Synthesizing some nanoparticle is not very expensive process, right? And then creating this reactor is neither expensive, so we can try lots of different innovation even through some inexpensive technology. So if you see, I really was very much impressed looking at these nanoparticles, how they are really producing it. They have pretty good idea about exactly what is happening, and then they can monitor it, and they can produce very uniform sized nanoparticles over there. So after that example, there is another example, and this is again, I think it's very familiar to you now. So they are actually making different phases through controlling the droplets over here, and they always keep some. I told you there will be always, hierarchical structure in the advanced reactor. What is called hierarchical structure is, you will see one region will be there for mixing in the beginning. So there they will do their initial mixing, so that whoever is coming, at least they are well mixed. Then they are sending that to the reaction. So initially they are starting with just by design with the spiral, no, but that is not good, because maybe at the end of that only it is getting mixed. So you should be having a mixing region in the beginning, and then you can start your reaction region. And if you see that, you can also give your other precursors from that area. So if you see that there is nanoparticle precursor from the top and other precursors from the bottom. So like that you can give, so that there will be cross flow experiments. So all these are very simple, which you really cannot do in a batch reactor or in a glass vessel. This kind of precise controlling is highly possible and all. And definitely, there are the good part is here, because of the droplet generation, you can make it multi-phase also. So that possibility is also there. So you don't need to worry about, liquid phase, vapor phase. That can also be very, very precisely controlled in a microreactor. So all you need to understand, is your fluid flow. And to do that, even, again, I will say that, because I at least tried couple of fluid delivery with the small channels, that your theory is good, but you have to do a lot of hit and trial and get the feel of it, like how you can really precisely control not forming any bubble through the reactor, how to control complete laminar flow. And second is the droplet generation. Droplet generation is much more difficult. For that, probably you need some knowledge, in the theory. But I have seen lots of my friends, who have no clue about Navier-Stokes equation, but they can generate the exact precise droplets, one by one, very, time controlled manner and all. In CCMB, I don't know if you know, there is a institute in Hyderabad, they are working on Center for Cell and Molecular Biology, I guess. They are working on the microfluidic thing for many, many bio applications. They have a big department on medical biotechnology. So they are doing very nice work on this kind of droplet generation. And in fact, in those droplets, they are taking those as one reactor. So one of your droplet through the microchannel is one reactor. So in that they are doing some experiment. Then that is getting imaged also. So suppose one droplet comes with some gene over there, okay, then they are showing, okay, this is what is happening with this gene. Then the second droplet they are pushing, they are giving another sample, so that is coming another. So they are actually setting a high throughput experiment in the same microreactor, just by creating lots of bubble in pipeline. So you can imagine, right? I mean, it is just having immense potential. I mean, until unless you see, there is no way you can even believe it. So one droplets are one reactor and one different reaction. So they are just creating a very time controlled droplets and sending their reactants over there, and they are monitoring through the imaging. So that's the way you can really accelerate your different screenings and all those things. Okay. So this is also, I think, another paper that we found on ZNO again. So Please bear with us that all the examples we have with ZNO, and they are using the micro mixers, and they are giving that we're doing that multi-phase ZNO particle synthesis. And what I wanted to show here is something like this. If you see that when they are not doing the micro reactor, they are getting very big problem over there of having those kinds of thing, and with the reactor they are having little better here. And you can still say that it is not looking exactly same, but you can see with whatever other procedures they have, there is a clear difference between the with and without microreactor. And good part is, see, they have quantified their nanoparticle size very nicely. You can see the histogram, right? You can see the heterogeneity is completely decreasing. That's very important. You should always quantify your nanoparticle synthesis very honestly like this, because it is the histogram that really matters when you are putting it into as a some sensor or some drugs. No matter how good your nanoparticle works, everything changes with size. Okay, now if your size is so much varying, then you really cannot trust that as drug, or you really cannot trust that as sensor, because you see, you are putting a chip as a sensor in your body. Now for me, if the size is 2 nanometer, for you it is 10 nanometer, for somebody else it is 100 nanometer, how do you calibrate, right? What do you diagnose? Absolutely not possible, right? Everything you need, even if it is a heterogeneity, it should be exactly from 5 to 10. The histogram should be very strictly maintained, so that your chip is not varying from person to person. That's very important. When you are talking about nanobio, it is actually a very different level of nano you are talking. So whenever you are wanting to translate whole your nanotechnology to biotechnology, you need to have much more control, and there you need to use lot more engineering into the system. Okay. And here also they are not only doing this comparison between micro reactor and a batch reactor, they are also kind of comparing the micro mixer versus T joint. Okay. So if you see that when T joint is there, there is different, this heterogeneity is still more, and when they are doing this micro mixing kind of thing with the spiral design, they are given even smaller, like basically the heterogeneity again decreases. So it's not only just the micro reactor, even with different mixing style, you have a pretty good control over the size distribution. So these are the parameters should be really given some thought. And then obviously, just to wrap it up, we can see that one main thing is the grain size are narrowly distributed for microreactors. Not only that, we can do a very good mass and heat transfer. And why good mass and heat transfer? Because of the mixing, right? Because mixing is the very vital step of any kind of transport processes we are talking about. So you need to control the temperature, you need to control the mass transport inside. All you need to do is a good mixing. Now the problem with a larger scale, you can do some stirring, but if you see, there is lots of heterogeneity in that stirring, right? You do some kind of stirring in between, and when it is it is going to the periphery, that the stirring pattern is completely different. And the problem is we don't have any good quantification also, that how much stirring is in the middle, in the medium, kind of region, and at the end. So we really don't know. All we are assuming, okay, they are more or less with the same RPM they are rotating, but that RPM doesn't tell anything, because you don't know the spatial distribution, how that mixing is happening. However, here, if you look at them with the micro, the spatial thing you can control much more, because your space is small, and you can see and you can image. The mixing can be imaged, so that you can make sure whether the mixing is good or bad. If you see it is not mixing, then you can change your different parameters. You can change your design very easily. You can change your flow rate. You can change your pressure. There are multiple parameters that you can use to optimize. Okay. That's very vital. So to improve on your heat transfer and mass transfer, this is good. And also the high surface to volume ratio in microreactor is also obviously good for any reactions, right? You need a very big surface area, and obviously the particles are much more uniform and reproducible. So more or less, many of the problem that we face with the nanoparticle synthesis can be handled with this, but definitely you have to be the expert in this field. It is not so easy to pick up all these overnight, so you have to spend some time, but could be a good option. That's what I thought. Okay. Now coming to the end, all I wanted to tell is kind of to summarize that what all we have learned so far. So we actually, and then we can see that, how, where are the big gaps are there in nanobiotechnology, and how we can kind of again put everything we have learned, step by step to make it a more, smart kind of thing. Because, what I feel always, very honestly, I wanted to share that, people from the computational side, computer science and electronics and all, they look very smart because their technology is smart, right? I mean, they are showing it to us. But the problem with bio and nano is it is a very exciting field that I'm sure, you all will appreciate. But why it doesn't look so smart? There is a reason, right, why it is not looking so smart. But if we work together, I think we can really make it very smart. But you have to use very, very smart tools. You should not be bogged down with your bio and nano, and that you should actually bring in lot other technologies into it, which may have no relation with nano and bio. And that's what, I will tell in summary, that don't even think too much, don't even read too much, just look outside, you see what is a big success. What do you think is very kind of, very exciting to you? I mean, is it that the organ printing, or is it that the smartphone, or is it, going to Mars? I mean, whatever it may be. But then you look at that, what is making it so successful? What is there? I mean, how is it possible that we try to send something to Mars and it's exactly going there? I mean, what makes it to do that? And you think about those technologies, and then you see, how you can apply those in here. Because, if you read only on bio and nano, I don't think the field is going to go too far. And it's very, very true. I mean, I can see that through my experiences, through others' experiences, through our bosses' experiences, everyone. So you have to think about all these things, and whenever you are looking at a technology, what you should see is first, what are the big gaps are there. Okay, so in this flowchart, I don't know how much it is understandable. Maybe I didn't do a very good job in that. It's about nanobiotechnology, but I really wanted to talk about something else which can be kind of, embedded into the nanobiotechnology, and maybe we can make it even more exciting and even more successful. That is, I thought that there are two fields, obviously, very important, and those are obviously, one is experimental and one is computational. That's how I divided, because anyway, here in India, we don't do things together, right? So always experimentalist will be one side and computational people will be one side, and they'll fight with each other. But you see, here there is no point in fighting. The two things actually is needed kind of hand in hand. But in experimental system, I just mentioned couple of things like using some microfluidics, 3D tissue models. You have some idea, right, how you can make a disease model using a microfluidics. You can think about the organ kind of skeleton, and then you can design the microfluidic, and then you can try to put the cells in, whatever cells are available. So that can be one area. And definitely monitoring, right, in situ monitoring, imaging, seeing what is happening, and that too in a high throughput manner. It's not just on only, one case, but so many cases. Can you handle really 300 cases in a day? That's very important. Okay, so high throughput is obviously one thing. And then coming to the computation, the data analysis. So what all you get through the experiment, can you analyze that? How will you analyze? What kind of statistical methods you can use, what kind of computational methods you can use, and that you can do at different level. More or less in this course, I have discussed apoptosis and cell signaling, because that is kind of relevant to bio. But definitely you can use it with respect to genetic network, you can do it with respect to proteomics, you can do it with respect to metabolomics and whatnot. I mean, whatever is available in our biosystem, everywhere actually, you can apply those things to monitor and analyze the data. Data analysis is absolutely important. And definitely, finally, having some kind of simulation model. Why? Because nanobiotechnology is a very complex field, and then, you have to know so many things in that kind of dimension, and it is not possible to do all through the experiments. You cannot send something to Mars, kind of sending it again and again and again, right? I mean, it's a very stupid idea. So definitely you have to understand the system, you have to send it, because finally it will be an experimental system. But if you don't have any clear picture of what you are trying to do, you cannot be successful with hit and trial. anything you see, even any kind of success we have in biomedical, look at the pacemaker, or maybe the ECG, maybe the MRI, everything having a very good computational model, right? You know exactly, what all things are they, know by pixel what is happening, number by number we know what is happening. So anything you want to do, really to be successful, you have to have a model for it. You have to know how you can simulate it. Many of the disturbances we may not know until unless we do the experiments, but absolutely important is some simulation model too. Okay. So with that, you see, if you really want to talk about the translational part of the nanobiotechnology, then you have to have these two very, strong, and then all the tools and technologies in nanobiotechnology, and then theory of neuroscience and systems biology, more or less coming with respect to the simulation and analysis, and then these could be the very tangible applications in here. What I see is already people are thinking about so many applications, and if we know a little bit more about the system, I think this can really come very fast. One is diagnostics. That is very obvious, right? So diagnostics is very good. Why? Because before giving so much drug, we first need to know now what is the disease and what level it is. Like, is it at the level 1, level 2, level 3? So there should be a classification. So in there, I think you can really work very hard, talking about the sensors, fabrication of the sensor. For that, you have to have a pretty good understanding on nano and also bio, because you are putting that sensor in the biosystem. So that is a very exciting field, diagnostic chips. And then definitely next comes the high throughput drug screening that I already told, right? That is a very challenging field actually. You are dealing with lot many things, so many numbers, so many drugs. You have to be very good in chemistry, you have to be very good in numbers, maths, and also in biology and the techniques. High throughput drug screening, I think one of the really, very exciting field where I think very, very smart people should go. Otherwise, we cannot develop that field good. The next couple of things are also very important, I find. Those are, one is personalized therapy. I think you all know, right? Whatever drug we take, we are not so sure whether it is going to work on us, because some drug has been already trialed in human being. Maybe it was working for those human beings. It may not be so good for me, because all of us has very different lifestyle, all of us has very different genetic configuration. We are not same, we are very heterogeneous. So it has been found again and again that the same drugs are not going to work for a person A, B, C, D. So that is why we have to kind of try to do something, so that suppose there are 4 or 5 options of drug that I can take. We should be able to test those, that which one is the best one working on me. That people are working very hard, which is called personalized therapy or tailored medicine. Now, in that also, I think we can try a lot of nanobio kind of thing, lots of sensors and nano drugs also. There are so many, right? Now you know that there are so many options. Can we do a, at least, if not high throughput, but at least kind of some screening based on a particular patient? And the last but not the least is the toxicology testing. That I think, absolutely important. Any nanoparticles, we are using, it may be for biological thing like drug delivery or drug, or it may be for solar. You can also use it for solar batteries. But the thing is, finally, it can come into the contact of human being, right? So we should be absolutely be able to tell that how toxic a nanoparticle for us, for our health. Because you never know, maybe it is working very good as solar cell, or it is working very good as many other applications. Maybe some, nanofluidics you are using for the heat transfer, but finally probably some human being are going to work on that. They will be synthesizing the particle, they will be working on it. Now if it puts lot of health hazard in us, then what is the point of doing? We were making that wheel in the other direction, right? We were trying to solve our health problem with nanoparticles. Now we are going back, that we are putting some more health problems in there. Okay. For example, pesticides. These pesticides, people are talking about the nanoparticle pesticide, which is fantastic. You use the nano pesticides and you put it in the field, all the insects are gone. But what about those nano pesticides coming into our skin? Not good, right? So it is highly debatable. It's very exciting. You should all work. But you should always keep in mind that what bad can happen. So no matter what you work with is, you should first do the testing on the toxicology. toxicology testing is the most important. First, you do the toxicology testing, and that's why I gave you that example on that, hepatic thing, the liver cell and all. That is all about the toxicology testing. You need to have a very good device for toxicology testing, and then if you find that it is okay, then only you go ahead and do the application. So those are the things, you see that how the biology and engineering and everything is getting integrated into it. But make sure 2 points at least, you should be very clear. You have to make sure how you can improve on your experimental techniques, and continuously how you can improve on your computational techniques. Both techniques you have to get it very good, or else I think all we'll be doing is, something we will just do and try to justify. It will not help. Okay, so that is something I wanted to tell. And then I wanted to give you some videos that I found could be interesting, and then you can just see probably, one by one, and you will be having some idea, because I just tried to kind of combine all the things that we have already covered through some videos. Some could be repetitive, so
Now,
be
however,
patient
there
with
is a
me.
way to enhance tumor cell death without adding toxicity in standard radiotherapy. Nano X-ray nanoparticles are incredibly small crystals, so tiny that 5,000 could fit around the perimeter of a human hair. These crystals are surrounded with a soft protective layer, minimizing unwanted interaction with the body and suspended in a water-based solution. In nano X-ray treatment, the particle suspension is injected with a standard syringe directly into a tumor, where the nanocrystals accumulate and wait for activation. At this point, the patient that received nano X-ray has a major advantage over a standard radiotherapy patient. That's because during standard radiotherapy treatment, the body is exposed to X-rays. X-rays react with water to produce free radicals, which in turn destroy DNA and other molecular structures, killing cells. Unfortunately, these free radicals destroy healthy cells just as well as cancer cells, and radiotherapy is therefore limited by the healthy tissue's damage. But in nano X-ray therapy, standard X-rays activate the nano X-ray particles in the patient's tumor. The nanocrystals are optimized to absorb more X-rays and produce many more free radicals than water, damaging the tumor cell's DNA and cellular structure more severely than the surrounding healthy tissue. Because of the nanoparticles, the X-ray's effect is amplified and localized within the tumor, allowing for a targeted strike against cancerous cells. While healthy tissues receive the standard dose of radiation, the tumor dies much more quickly. Just one injection of nanoparticles can amplify several radiotherapy sessions, shrinking the tumor over time. Because it uses standard radiotherapy equipment and works with a purely physical principle, nano X-ray therapy can be used to fight a wide variety of cancers. Nano X-ray is the next step in radiotherapy treatments, and it's brought to you by Nanobiotics.
So good, right? You see, right? The nano is putting some extra, things. You can really tune its size to get those X-rays very selectively. So you can do a lot of things with that. And then, maybe I will try the next one. Imaging. So this one also, I think I already showed it to you, but it'd be interesting if we can use this kind of thing for nano also. So this is also for high throughput screening people are using actually. It's a whole organoid and you can image them very easily. So you can see all kinds of, drug effect, and you can monitor the responses like that. It's just coming like the ECG, right, for the whole heart of that fish. So you can do lots of interesting thing, using imaging. If you can create such things also in microfluidics would be good, but it is still not there. So people are using in the fish level, but I think we can do that. It's highly doable. The proof of concepts are there, but not in the video form. It is available. So imaging, absolutely important to make sure that the things or your particles are working good. And then the next step is the high throughput, definitely. The next technology I wanted to say is definitely the high throughput, right? You have to have the help of robotics to make sure your all nanoparticles, lots of nanoparticles can be tested in a big plate like this. If you see this plate, probably is having some 394 like wells in that. So no matter what you do, again imaging you can do and check for the particles. You have to make it to that scale, okay? So that you have lots of comparisons. And here you can do lot more things like, ELISA, all those other assays you can do very easily, with a 394 dots. If you see though that plate, right, it is having so many wells and those are actually very, very small. Look at this. And now, your idea would be to even make it to a fluidic kind of thing. You can upgrade this whole technology to a microfluidic plus high throughput, which is still not there, but people are working. So you have to just find those information. So you can apply, all your mechanical engineering knowledge, to make the robotics to do such things. And then only you can see that, how people are doing it so kind of, methodically and systematically to get the information. And one interesting thing I really wanted to tell you is that I found that not any group in the world actually really working 50% on nano and 50% of bio. So it's very interesting. You should really start thinking about that, because either the person will be too much trained on nano or it will be too much trained on bio. So you can take that advantage, and good part is if in the world not that much, then we should really take that chance, right? We can be the first one. Because any other field you go, probably already people are taking the lead. So this is one field you should definitely think about, because we have enough nano, initiative over here. If you can add some good bio part into it, and especially the technology part, you can really start on this nano bio and do it 50-50, not focusing on only one thing, because it is really, at that stage where we need to mix them, equally to this field. So now with the high throughput, I think you have some idea, how the high throughput looks like. And then we will just go through some maybe cheap device making. And here also I wanted to give you a simple technique. And then you can look through some more like a soft lithography kind of thing. So here I will show you, how you can just try making a complex microfluidic device, but a simple fabrication. You see, right? People are really creative. You always don't need fancy things. How do you like it? Cool, right? You should really work on all these technologies, okay? These are really nice, very creative, and not only creative, actually you need to know a lot of science, it's not, you will not be able to do it if you are not good in science. It's just not magic. You have to be very good in your physics, chemistry, everything, but still you need to think out of the box too, okay? Very important. So this is also, okay, sorry. Yeah. So this is also something I wanted to give example. Why? Because we were talking about this oxygen, right? Each and every like the thing we are doing is, it's not coming. I think it is not the one. Yeah. So here actually what I wanted to do is, or what I wanted to show is that these microfluidic chip I have shown you, but how you can actually do the whole fluid delivery system to be attached to it. So if you look at this, you will be having one idea that the first is making the chip, right? So that part you have some idea how people are doing, but this is also about how you can really make it very good in with respect to the flow paths. You see how you can do it. And you can imagine, right? These all are not doing, will not be so difficult, and it may not be so expensive also. All you need to have is those attachments and then all your fluid things. Then you can make, actually very complicated device with the design as well as maintaining all these, fluid paths and all. So you can maintain lots of things into this, in this seal case. You can completely, make a reactor with so many inlets and all, and it will be so less costly. If you think of a big reactor with this kind of configuration, you will just not be able to afford it even, right? So then you can even keep it in the incubator and you can do all your things. So please, make sure you watch such video to keep you motivated. It's very important. It is all there. We just don't look at them. It's very really amazing, right? We look at so many things in the internet, but we never look at all these things. Sometimes, taking some time off and doing it would be really useful, especially when you are working in the lab. Then I'll just go through 2 more videos, then I'll be done. So this one also I like, this is my favorite. This oxygen imaging. This is something I really want to do because I found that oxygen is really very difficult, to measure, and it's always there in all the diseases. Okay, this is one group from MIT again. They are working on. I think they have started a company called VisiSense. You can look at it. They have lots of interesting products. If you see, they are actually imaging the oxygen in the microchannel. They have used some kind of nano sensor, and you can pretty much image the spatial distribution of oxygen in the channel, and they are creating a tumor kind of in those channels, and they are measuring the hypoxic levels and all, like whether it can be hypoxia or it can be hyperoxia, but basically they are measuring the oxygen level and all. So then this is also possible, right? The imaging of oxygen. And then finally, I will just give you one example where you see that people are trying to make a diagnostic device using microfluidic chip, and it is a nanobio application. Okay, we had good luck with all of this. Just the last one, we don't have so good luck, it seems. Anyway, I mean, you can always look at it. It basically, it's a very interesting thing. They are making one microfluidic chip, for detecting the HIV, I think. And then they are using the nice, channels, and in that they are using the gold nanoparticle also as the sensor, okay, to detect those antibodies. So everything they are kind of, doing in that miniaturized lab. You can just take a look at it. It comes. So this is a end-to-end, application of what all we have learned. So that is highly possible to make. So with that, I would really encourage you to come to this field and contribute to it. It's not really, a developed field. So you have a lot more things to do. You have to develop the field, and make sure you always use the smart technology. Don't, bang upon the old technologies. It's not going to work because it's indeed a very complex field. Okay. It's just having so many things. If we don't use the smart tools, we will not be able to contribute much. That's very important. Okay. Somehow it is not coming. Okay.
A plastic chip about the size of a credit
So
card
finally.
could one day diagnose disease in the remotest regions of the developing world.
So
If
using
you see
just
the blood is
one
going right through the microfluidic channel.
microliter of whole blood,
So
we were
he
able
is
to
from
get
Columbia
detection of
University.
HIV, and we can do that in the field with less volume in about 15 minutes instead of several hours.
The device, dubbed the M-chip by Samuel Sia and his team at Columbia
And they
University,
call it
is
M-chip.
designed to work in places without access
not
to
too
advanced lab
expensive too.
facilities.
There's no question, I think, that this type of test is really needed in the developing world and appreciated. But the question is, can we actually develop the test to a point where it can be made available at a sufficiently low cost?
To keep costs low, the M-chip was designed with only 3 simple parts: a plastic
So
tube
you see,
loaded
right?
with
They
blood and
flow.
chemical
Although you
reagents,
think that, oh
a
my
molded
God, what will
plastic
happen?
card lined with
They
microchannels,
do. I
and
mean,
a
the blood
syringe
flows
that
very
fills the blood and
nicely. You have to
reagents
be
through a
very
tip
good at the
device.
whole
With
thing.
a
But
team
all
of
they are doing is
talented lab
manipulating
mates,
with a
we took
syringe.
this exact format to Rwanda, where we did testing on locally collected patient samples. We did testing for both HIV and syphilis. This was a test that could be performed in less than 20 minutes with only a finger prick of whole blood. And we had performance that rivaled.
I think the connection is pretty poor today. I just wanted to show that last part because that is having the gold nanoparticles over there. But anyway, I mean, you can always see this link and all. So after flowing this blood, actually, they also put some nanoparticles over there with which it is going to bind and finally tell you that and that is also a very complex design that they make, gold nanoparticle coated with silver, and that silver will be having some reflection kind of thing, right? So that they can image. So depending on that silver, that intensity coming in, finally, they are actually doing all these things.
It's essentially a straight channel.
The diagnosis is being done
a linear
with that
channel that's been looped around in various ways. And then at different parts of this microfluidic channel, we would have different zones where we would pattern in a molecule that captures what you want to detect.
When whole blood flows into these looped zones, antibodies against disease proteins become trapped.
And then what follows is that you would have washing reagents. Secondary antibodies delivered automatically to these detection areas. And then at the end, you have the silver development reagent that develops into solid silver if you have the gold nanoparticles captured on the surface. And so the thickness of the silver film that's formed reflects the amount of analyte that was originally in your sample. And then we simply look at how much light passes through that silver film.
Silver and gold may sound like expensive materials, but the M-chip is actually quite cheap.
The material in making the cassette is just pennies in plastic, and even the reagents, because we use such low volumes, only cost a few pennies. But we think that after packaging it together, it will probably cost a few dollars.
The next step is to take the M chip into mass production.
Now you see
Sia's
they
team
are
is
also
working
doing
with
the mass
Claros
production of the
Diagnostics,
chip.
a company that he co-founded together with
Look
Vincent
at the
Linder.
instrument.
The ultimate goal is to bring the manufacturing of the M chip.
So not only that, design and detecting all those things, but also you have to mass produce these chips, right? Because one by one, if you produce, it will not be viable. So that is also something important. Anyway, with that, I'll probably finish it up. So you can now know that, where is the future. so much better than me because see, you know what I am doing is I have to go back home, cook, feed my son, and prepare for this. I mean, how much I can do, right? You guys don't have anything to do in life other than working on all these things, right? So how do you think that you will not be able to convey the message as any worse than? You will be always better, right? But you need to be confident. Otherwise, see, like that, if you know so many things and not able to present, even in nanobiotech class, then where will you stand in world? You take the field far, right? It's long way to go. So be very confident. If you are wrong, that's also fine. Be honest that I don't know this, but I know this. That's it. That's you should learn. And here I am not going to judge you on the basis of something wrong you do. All I want to know is whether you have got some interest in at least looking through the internet. That's it. So I'm not going to ask how much charge will be there here. What will be the electric potential of this? Is the value 2.02 volt or 0.94? All these things are not. Be confident and and Promas, after this first take that.
I have sent PPT to. She will send it to me.
Do you have pen drive? Okay, you can transfer it to this computer as we are transferring our PPT. So one by one,